the people who buy graphic novels casually at Challengers, who would 100% be the audience for Chris Ware, they're not the folks that get weekly pulls lists or buy superhero comics or even get genre stuff from Image. They're all of them, every single one of them getting it from Amazon. All of them.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the Challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
How dare you, with your 2 mobile legs and your 2 functioning arms,
Only technically.
Show off in front of a poor, crippled man. Mm-hmm. How dare you? So, not even a day after I get wow, look at all those Batmans. There's a lot of Batmans up there.
There's about almost 20 Batmans.
There are a lot of Batmans.
There's a few more to come.
Not even a full 24 hours, actually no, a full 24 hours after I'm finally discharged from physical therapy for my hip, I, in the normal practice of diligently unpacking and checking in and sorting the comics for the week, the comics that you, dear listener, have the option of buying in the store, I screw up my elbow and now have tendonitis.
So, real question here.
Yeah.
Do you think your injury has something to do with how large the weeks have been recently?
Yes.
And consistently?
Yes, absolutely yes. Because I'm one man who is loading up the car, unloading the car, unpacking all the boxes, and because I've been doing it for so long, I'm kind of set in my ways, and by my ways, I mean my physical routines. So one of the chief causes of tendonitis, aside from a sudden jarring injury, is repetitive motion.
Tennis elbow, isn't that usually what it's called?
Yes, it is called tennis elbow, you are correct. And unpacking comics is nothing but repetitive motion.
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was joking to our good friend Stuart Schreck from DC Comics that now that I'm over 50, I'm literally injuring myself regularly doing the most mundane daily activities. This is not me like, hey, I'm going to try rock climbing and getting hurt.
Yeah.
This is me lifting comics out of a box. Maybe I grab too many at one time. Maybe I hold them for too long so my grip is wrong. I'm going to have you, everybody at home can do this as well, hold one of your arms straight out. You pick which one. Okay. Palm facing down. Okay. Now with the other hand, take those fingers and bend them up.
Okay.
And then, like as hard as you can go, and then hold it for 30 seconds. That's a tendonitis exercise. Now take that same hand...
To give it to you or to relieve it?
To relieve it.
Okay.
But does that hurt?
Doesn't feel great.
Well, that's because you don't stretch out enough.
I don't, it's true.
Now take that same hand, rotate it so the palm is facing up, and now grab those same fingers and pull them down. So it's the same, you feel the same, but it's working the different muscles.
Sure, okay. Well, that's cool.
Not cool. It really hurts to do that.
Yeah.
When I do that, it throbs more. Well, it doesn't, that's not true. It's not a throb. Tendonitis pain is a constant, non-fluctuating, like, I don't know, burning? It's really hard to describe. But that's part of one of the things that helps them decide that it's that.
Yeah, the joke of it to me is that on the one hand, you know, this is something you do all the time and you hurt yourself doing it all of a sudden, which, you know, speaks to advancing age. But on the other hand, I think it maybe has more to do with the fact that you've been doing it every week for 20-something years.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe that more than the age.
Well, that plus, as you pointed out, how big the weeks have been, and next week is also a killer.
Cool.
I mean, the number of boxes that we're getting every week has gone up by like a third.
Yeah.
It hasn't doubled, but at least it's up by a third, and that's a lot of extra work.
So are you going to start, once you've recovered more or less from the tendonitis, are you going to be instituting more stretching exercises on those arms, knowing that you'll have to be doing boxes for probably a while?
Well, I mean, that's what I should do, but we all know I'm not going to do it.
Sure. But, I mean, you know
that as a human.
With some of those stretching exercises, 'cause I have stuff I need to do for my back sometimes, I should be doing them on a regular basis, not necessarily daily, but regularly.
Yeah.
But there's times where if I feel it more in my back, I can start doing the exercises and it starts to affect me positively immediately. So I think it can be a thing where obviously you don't want to wait until you're in the state you're in now.
Right.
But if you feel it sort of getting less good, start doing the exercises. Anyway, everybody, welcome to Contest of Challengers, a comics industry medical podcast here on the Yak Channel Podcast Network.
I feel that what we were talking about, which, by the way, this was not the way I planned to start this episode, but you had to be blunt. You had to literally show off.
Uh-huh.
What did you say as you got up to turn the light off?
I can't remember. Something like I don't mean to
show off
or something like that.
Yeah, so that's it. But I mean, this is literally
with my standing up and walking over to someplace and then sitting back down.
Yes, this is literally not a symptom, but a result of comics retail. So
Sure.
it counts.
Carrying challengers.
It absolutely
on
counts.
your back with one arm
and one leg.
Yeah.
Same side too. I wonder if that has to play into it.
Because that's where you're carrying challengers. The left side.
Like I think. Oh no, it's not the same side. It's a different side. It's the right hip and the left elbow. But I think the hip injury has a lot to do with it. With how I have positioning, and one of the things that the medical professional was looking for was something out of the ordinary, but like new repetitive movements, and I was able to isolate some of those. So it should be good in a couple of days. I don't know. I'm iced right now. I have to take it off midway through the podcast.
Are you taking as much ibuprofen as you were the last 24 hours?
More. In fact, the window of it working is getting shorter.
Uh-oh.
And
there was it all the time. You're not supposed to take it all the time.
Well, I mean, it works.
Okay, that's good.
And again, a medical professional had told me to up it to this dosage.
Sure.
But there was a solid hour today where, even though I thought I timed it right, it just took that much longer for the next dose to kick in.
Oh, gosh.
So I was miserable for an hour today at the store.
Sorry.
It's all right. I got through it.
You did, clearly.
I'm here. I'm alive. I'm ready to talk about the week in comics.
Okay.
And the weeks and months coming up.
Yeah,
and I'm going to... I'm sorry, do you have something to start with?
No, not really. I was just going to say, it's a weird time for comics, mostly because when we're recording this, a week out from New York Comic Con. So news is starting to trickle out, and business stuff is sort of happening, but next week, and probably next episode, is probably the heart of the storm, where all of that stuff is going to happen.
But I hate that the news at conventions is just next month's solicitations.
Yeah, it's no surprise that we've just had the solicitations for December, and there's a lot of, 2019's over, and huge stuff is going to happen in 2020, and it's like, oh, in a week there's going to be the Marvel panels at New York Comic Con that will be announcing stuff that will be in the January catalogs. That's just the system now. That's how it works.
When I was a lad and going to comic conventions, and you'd go to a retailer presentation, they were kind of hinting at what they were going to do for the year, but now news cycles being what they are, that's not what it is, and it's...
Yeah, and frequently, I mean, while they might know books that are launching, and hopefully they have a pretty good roadmap of when big things are going to be happening, for a lot of books, they don't even make it 6 issues anymore. So you're not getting here's the first year's worth of this thing. It's like, Christ, we don't know if it's going to make it past the first trade.
Yeah.
Because it frequently doesn't.
One of the things I want to bring up today is just how many books AWA has coming out. But we'll get to that in a minute. What I want to start with, which it's too late to start. We've already started.
Whoops.
Why do I call those things out? It doesn't matter. What I want to talk about next, the thing that I had to launch into was... Oftentimes on this very podcast, you and I will talk about cryptic things that we're working on, and sometimes they don't work out, and we never know, but we want to let you know that we're trying to do things, and...
Sure.
Well, I can announce right now, and this is something Dal doesn't even know, so he's hearing it at the exact same time.
Edge of my seat.
We are going to have, in late November, a signing... with not one, but 2 brand new comic book writers who both come from different backgrounds, and it is going to be one of the biggest events we've ever held.
Ooh.
It is the former A.J. Lee, now AJ Mendez, and the current Amy Garcia, actress from such shows as The George Lopez Show and Lucifer. That's one I can't remember.
Yeah.
Man, I always want to say a different show name, but Lucifer.
Lucifer, that's usually what they put in her credits.
Yeah. They're the writers of a brand new Glow miniseries called Glow vs. the Babyface. And we just got confirmation that is going to happen the week before Thanksgiving. We don't have a date yet, but it'll be sometime between the 20th and the 24th.
Okay.
And this is, you and I were talking, I think 2 episodes ago about an upcoming ticketed event. That's this.
That's this one.
That's this one. This will be a ticketed sellout in advance. I guarantee this is going to sell out.
One would assume, yeah. I'd be shocked if it didn't. This actually puts us at 2 Garcias for the year.
Yeah?
That's the most Garcias I think we've ever had in a year. Someone else can do the math on that one.
Is that right?
I think it's the most Garcias we've had.
Is it 2 in 1 year?
Yes.
Okay.
Cami Garcia?
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of a signing from last year. Sorry.
Okay.
And so, long story short, you're going to have to pre-buy a copy of Glow vs. the Babyface #1 to get into this event.
And there will also be, because we're going to be doing this through a ticketing site, there will be ticketing fees that the purchaser will have to take care of.
Yes, and you'll be able to get one other autograph aside from the comic. We don't know about photos yet. We'll find that out. We'll have all the answers before the event listing goes live.
On the event listing, we will probably also be kind of specific about exactly how large an item you can get signed. We've had other events with people from kind of outside of the regular comics mainstream who are doing comics, and they tend to bring sometimes very large items that are unwieldy and take forever in the line.
Yeah.
So we might have to enforce a specific, it needs to be at least no bigger than this measurement. Please don't bring 24 by 36 posters or life-size standees or whatever. That's right out. That's going to be an NO.
Yes. And part of me wants to make it so you have to sign up for the whole miniseries.
I think that's fair. I think we could do it where instead of the ticket being one issue of the comic book, it's the whole 4-issue miniseries. We will put it aside for you under your name. It's prepaid. Pick it up or don't.
Right.
I'm okay doing it that way.
But you're only getting the first issue signed.
Right. You'll get the first issue signed when you show up, and you'll get 2, 3, and 4 as they come out.
What about people that would be coming in from another state for this event? Will we offer to ship if they pay for shipping?
I think what we might do is maybe we'd have to maybe make a separate ticket or some sort of thing on it where these will be mailed out to you.
Okay.
For an additional fee. I mean, we probably would just do a thing where we will send you 2, 3, and 4 when they're all done.
Yeah, one at one time when it's over with.
In a mailer for $8 or whatever.
Oftentimes at events like this, when we have a bigger name, we'll see a huge bump for that issue, but not for the series. And I want this to be to make this worth their time.
Yeah. No, I like the
I
idea
want this book to sell.
Making the ticket the whole series.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Do we know how many issues it is?
I can check.
Up until early this week, I thought it was a one-shot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can check previews and see if they've got a listing, but otherwise we can just email
honestly,
the company and say, hey,
honestly,
how many are you doing?
That is more beneficial to the ticket buyer because the service fee, it's a flat fee, right? It's not...
I think it might be a percentage.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember. Okay. It's been a while. But I think it might be like a base rate plus a percentage. But again,
and I want to reiterate that the service fee is just the fee that the company charges. We're not charging you anything above the cost of the comics.
You're just buying the comics, and then you get the first issue signed and an additional item for free. In a world where we didn't have to make any money, we would eat the service fees. But we can't afford to eat the service fees and do an event like this.
Yeah.
So, no, you will have to pay the service fees.
Wow, think how big those weeks are going to be. My poor arm.
Sure.
So, yeah, literally at the end of the day, this came in, because you and I were chatting at different points during the day. This came in at the end of the day, and details to be worked out, but I'm confident in announcing this much at this point.
That's cool. It had been something that we had been talking about for a little while, and basically as soon as the book was announced, there was a thing of should we ask AJ if she wants to do a signing? But
Well,
it was a much larger project than that.
And we didn't just ask April. We went through channels.
Yeah.
We did it properly.
Yeah.
Which, it's not improper to do it the other way, but we wanted to make it official, and we wanted it to be less like, hey, buddy, hey, pal, do us this favor.
Yeah.
We want it to be like, hey, publisher, this is a thing we're trying to do. If you think there's value in this, let's work together.
Right. So that should be really fun.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good time. And it'll be a busy time of year. Mm-hmm. Certainly right before, right in the midst of the holidays, I guess you could call it.
It's around my birthday, you're exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, it literally may be on your birthday.
It may be on my birthday.
Yeah.
I may be working the signing on my birthday.
I also said that...
Normally a day off.
One of the things... Well, not because it's your birthday, but because it's...
but it just happened this year.
Yeah.
I've worked on my birthday before. It's not a big deal.
Obviously. It's you're an adult. That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I had said about that specific weekend is even though AJ is no longer the women's champion for the WWE or a pro wrestler,
correct, she
still has a ton of fans who are wrestling fans.
Sure. And
World Wrestling Entertainment will be in town all weekend for live SmackDown, live NXT show, Survivor Series pay-per-view, and then a live Raw. Mm-hmm. So there'll be plenty of wrestling fans from out of town in the area.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rosemont, but yeah.
Well, area.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Blue Line goes right to Challengers.
Right there. Yeah.
Right there.
Yep. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
A interesting time.
Yeah.
It's also an interesting time on the landscape of comic sales. And I mean this in the best way possible. 2 major events have happened this week that just show you how comic books are mainstream. Mm-hmm. Number 1, Raina Telgemeier's Guts, her brand new graphic novel that just came out, is the number 1 selling book in the country.
Yep, not just graphic novel.
Not graphic novel.
Kids' books or hardcovers.
Book. Number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list.
Book.
The number 1 best-selling book with like 74,000 copies sold in the first week.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Sure. She deserves it.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. No doubt. She has literally, we've said this many times, transcended the comics market.
Yeah.
Her books are everywhere. You could get her books at like Best Buy and Target and, I don't know, probably Walgreens or Pep Boys or AutoZone, probably.
I don't know if there's a kid in America between the ages of 8 and 18 that has not read at least one Raina Telgemeier book.
Yeah.
That's just how prolific she is. That's all of these kids read at least one of her books, if not all of them.
And because of or just in keeping with that and how important that is a number 1 book for the comics industry, but to show you how important comic books are as books, it's been a couple of years, but the New York Times has brought graphic novels back to their bestseller lists.
Yeah.
And I have a prepared
remember
statement.
All that extra stuff they were going to do for comics? Sure, they're taking the comics bestseller list away, but they're going to do all this other coverage that they never did because they couldn't have cared less.
Right. So here's the statement. The New York Times updates and expands its bestsellers lists. Monthly lists will now include mass-market paperbacks and combined graphic books. And here's the distinction, and I kind of like it.
Okay.
They're not calling them graphic novels. They're graphic books.
Okay.
And I think that is...
Because they're not novels, some of them.
Right. I think that's okay, industry-wide, to change over to that nomenclature. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've internally been saying graphic novels and trade paperbacks for years. No one knows what a trade paperback is.
No, I'd pretty much just call them all graphic novels.
Yeah, but I mean, I think... I'm not advocating we change, but I think that it would be okay to change. And they're graphic books. Mm-hmm. That's what they are. They're not graphic as in content, but they're graphics. They're drawn.
Yeah.
Today, the New York Times Book Review announced changes to the bestseller lists in print and online. The bestsellers team will begin tracking mass-market paperbacks, genres including romance, and a combined list for graphic books, fiction, nonfiction, children's, adults, and manga. that means they're all going to be together.
Yeah, I don't think that list is going to work out for a lot of non-manga, non-kids publishers.
No, it's going to go. It's going to be 9 volumes of Dogman, all of Reina's books, My Hero Academia, One Punch Man, and maybe a saga,
or One Piece or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Man. Like it's not going to do great for like your Marvels, DCs.
No.
An occasional image will probably sneak in. A new volume of Saga or something.
Yeah, I said Saga.
Yeah, so I mean that's about it for like adult North American publishers. I mean like Rusty Brown's going to chart. You know, that'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy oh boy. Marvel and DC though. Woof. This might as well not even come back as far as they're concerned.
But it's not like there ever was a top 10 superhero bestsellers or anything.
There was stuff that would do well because there would be like these like hardcovers or whatever, and kid stuff and manga I think was usually sorted out. So
I mean, I think something like Batman Damned maybe has a chance.
Maybe.
Doomsday Clock hardcover volume 1.
I mean, Teen Titans Raven, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like the average Rebirth or whatever you call it now, graphic novel, probably not.
Right.
Probably not.
Previously tracked by the bestsellers franchise until 2017, these lists are returning due to continued reader interest and market strength. These monthly lists will begin publishing on October 2nd online and October 20th in print. We are thrilled to bring back to our readers graphic books and mass market bestsellers as 2 monthly bestseller lists, lies Pamela Paul, editor of the Book Review.
Says the woman who cut them.
Yeah, says the woman who called comics
2 years ago
a genre.
Because it didn't matter.
2 years
she
ago,
didn't care about
Pamela, comics a genre.
Thrilled.
Our new monthly graphic books list combines the format as it exists across all platforms, hardcover, paperback, and digital, in order to represent the range of ways in which publishers create and people of all ages read these books. And readers are passionate about the many genres, from horror to romance, represented on the mass market fiction list.
Wait, genres? I thought comics was a genre.
Yeah, I know, right?
So confused.
It's interesting that they cite counting digital when nobody gets digital sales from
I
like
don't know where they're getting those
Comixology
numbers from.
Yeah. Interesting.
Is Comixology reporting now to that?
And what about webtoons, like really popular webcomics? Do they have a chance of making this list?
No. I mean, I don't know.
To turn this to one of my favorite topics, BBC Radio 1, when they do their chart, the official UK chart, they use sales, listens, downloads, and views.
That's more. That's common, I think, across all channels that are tracking how music is doing because the idea of sales is so irrelevant now.
Yeah.
Like a lot of stuff is you can have the #1 album in the country based largely on. I can't remember.
How many stations streaming on Pandora?
No, I was going to say I can't remember what they call it, but it's like purchase equivalence or something. Like basically how many times it's streamed divided by some ratio to get. Well, if all of these, like if people listen to it 8 million times, what is that in purchases? Like there's a term for it that I don't have at my recall, but. Yeah, that's basically how sales, in quotes, are tracked now.
Let's see, where was I? In addition, there will be 2 new monthly children's lists, middle grade paperback and young adult paperback. Basically the Zoom and the Ink lists, if you will. The monthly science and sports lists are being retired, as the titles on those lists are frequently represented on current non-fiction lists. These are I'm laughing too much. These changes reinforce the mission of the bestseller list to track what is broadly popular in the book-selling industry. Science and sports. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
You just don't make the cut.
Nope.
You don't make the cut.
You had your chance. This is where it ends up for you.
Yeah, I think it's a really... I keep saying important. It's great that they're back on the bestseller list, and it will do wonders for exposure and talent exposure, and again, to be able to say, hey, I'm a New York Times best-selling author.
Yeah, there is some value to that for sure.
I think that there's just a level of prominence or
professionalism.
Yeah, that comes with saying that this Rusty Brown book is a New York Times best-selling book.
It does make it seem more distinguished. That's true.
Distinguished is good as well. So, yay, good for you, New York Times.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I canceled my subscription.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I did back in
You did.
2017. Had to be done.
Yeah.
Those were the things that I thought were super important. But I guess another really important thing that came up this week in the comics industry that, I'll be honest, I don't think you and I, A, have a take on it.
No.
And B, care.
I mean, I care in the sense that it could have negative repercussions for how we do our business, but based on what's been reported so far, it's really hard to see a way through to, like, this is great or this is terrible, so much as, like, this sounds like corporate realignment.
What I see it as is a 69-year-old man who's been carrying the comics industry on his back for a while, and I don't mean that in a...
You're not 69.
Like, hey, this guy deserves all the credit in the world, but he deserves a lot of credit for keeping things moving, and he's trying to say, I don't want to keep doing this, but he doesn't want comics to go away. I don't want it to make it sound like Steve Geppi is this selfless martyr who
No.
crawls through broken glass for comics.
Definitely not.
But what we're talking about is
Milton Group,
Diamond...
I'm sure, would have stories about that.
I'm sure. Diamond Comic Distributors has reorganized their...
Under a new parent company.
Yes. Geppi Family
Entertainment
is now the parent company for Diamond.
Enterprises? One of the two.
It was I
got
wanted
an
to
E.
say...
It's
yeah,
GFE.
it was definitely an E. So they've changed a bunch of people at the top of the company.
Yeah.
And created some positions and moved people around.
And they folded in a bunch of different Geppi-owned things, like Overstreet and Gladstone, maybe? And the museum or something? A bunch of stuff that he owns is now under one, like, parent company umbrella, and Diamond is one of those things.
Ironically, the day that all of this was announced, their website was down, which was a Wednesday where we desperately needed it up, so it really wreaked some havoc on our Wednesday.
Yeah, your productivity kind of stalled there for the first couple hours.
Yeah. Well, I need access to that site.
It's true.
Everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does. If you want to pull down orders or get information or just...
Or receive direct ship orders.
Yeah.
Or, not that we had to worry too much about that on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's true. Inexplicably, for the last couple of weeks... Our regular Wednesday shipping reorders have been coming in on Thursdays.
Yeah.
And we talked about it before, how we understand it when it's a holiday or, I don't know, a UPS strike, but it's the last 2 weeks. No reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got half of our direct ship reorder on Wednesday and the other half showed up on Thursday. But yeah, the reorders have been irregularly delivered, but hopefully that's in the past. Obviously, we can't control it. The Diamond thing, the big news was Roger Fletcher. No longer with the company. After
27, 29 years, yeah.
Yeah, a long time. And then
as long as I've been doing this. We've been doing that.
Chris Powell, who was like the head of like new accounts, or I can't remember what his previous
basically
title was.
retail liaison.
Yeah, is bumped up to a new title and some new responsibilities.
Every time somebody had a complaint about Diamond on Facebook, he was the person who got tagged. Rightly or wrongly, he was the guy who got tagged.
Yeah. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of this stuff, it's hard to suss out how relevant it's going to be to our day-to-day business, because it's a lot of very high up at the company sort of things, and is it going to mean changes to how Diamond invoices retailers, or how they stock items, or expansion, or delivery times, or 1,000 other things? I have no idea, and as a result, I don't really have a take.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to affect how we run our business.
I hope.
Yeah. There may be some immediate concerns. There may not be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But it's a thing that we'd first heard rumblings from other retailers earlier in the week, and I sent to you. I'm like, hey, this is a thing. You're like, I don't know anything about it. And I didn't either.
Uh-huh.
And then we find out, it's like, okay. I mean, I hope it's for the best. I hope it's to strengthen the company and keep it going.
Sure.
I recently, and I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast, but there was on a former retailer's personal Facebook page a discussion that devolved into puerile name-calling about Steve Geppi.
On the one hand, that's social media for you. On the other hand, that's current and former retailers for you. So together, it's just going to get there so much faster.
It's the accelerant that just moves things along.
Yeah.
That just, I don't know. I don't see a reason for that type of behavior online.
Yeah, it always strikes me as incredibly pointless, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not the billionth person to look at social media and go, why do people behave that way? So, yeah, I don't have anything to add to that.
However, there are times when social media works in your favor. There was a woman who is from the UK, and she was heading back, and she wanted to get some presents for, I can't remember, nephew, younger brother, a 10-year-old.
Family member,
who was into Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
So I jumped up to help over, and Gina was right there, but I'm like, I got this one. Mainly because of the accent, of course. But while we're in the manga section, and I'm explaining what Dragon Ball Z is versus other stuff on the wall, and she was young enough that I felt this question was appropriate. Not that it's not appropriate as a 51-year-old man who listens.
Pertinent?
I don't. Is pertinent the right word?
Yeah.
I said,
relevant.
do you listen to BBC Radio 1? Which I've done numerous times to people from the UK who are in. And sometimes I've been told, well, that's the station that, like, the teenagers and early 20-somethings listen to.
Sure.
But to me, it's the pop music station. I was talking legit to a friend who is from Ireland, who's in England now. And on her birthday, I'm like, I hope Devin Alice plays something fun for you on BBC Radio 1. And she said, thank you for telling me who they were. At best, I'll listen to Radio 6.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's the 80s industrial dance music type.
Sure.
Like the Neo Night music. Like, okay, I get it. But she doesn't even that much as well. As a self-professed pop fan, I listen to the current stuff. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I asked this woman, do you listen to BBC Radio 1? And I'm telling a story on a comics podcast specifically because she said, yeah, I saw you with Greg James on your Instagram feed. That's why I'm here.
Terrific.
She was looking for, I don't know how,
it's all worth
I don't know how you search comic stores on Instagram, but I mean, we do put comic books and comics as a hashtag in most of our posts.
I guess. Most of the name of the store is comics.
Right. So she came across the Challenger's feed, saw me with Greg James. She's like, oh, I'm in Chicago. I'll go to that store.
That's great.
That's why she came in. So my constant talking and hyping of BBC Radio 1, it paid off.
Yeah, that now counts as work.
And there was a previous point where, right before I went to that signing, there was a couple in from England, and I had said, hey, do you listen to Greg James? And they're like, yeah, we actually met him once at a thing. I'm like, well, guess what? He's in town this Monday. They're like, oh, we're leaving Monday. I can't believe he's here. And I respectfully did not do the accent for any of those stories.
Cool.
But the woman from today, she lives in Chicago, so she'll be back.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Small world. I love it. British broadcasters bring everyone together. Mm-hmm. There we go. Thank you, social media. Look at that. It worked. I've been trying to do more stories and things and Instagram posts, but I didn't do a restock photo this week because the restock came in over 2 days.
Right.
There was no one set photo. So it didn't work. And I was going to do a post about not doing it, but I never got around to it.
Yeah, each shipment looked on its own kind of anemic.
Right.
So, yeah. And then the Wednesday one also showed up late in the day, which I kind of didn't appreciate.
Yeah.
But it all got done.
On the way in on Thursday, because I was working because Kent couldn't be bothered, Mr. I've been invited to San Francisco to speak at an Oculus conference. Whatever. If that's even a thing. It is, and that's a big honor, and we're very proud of him. Right?
Oh, yes. So proud.
Good work. So I saw UPS. I'm like, oh, man, I gotta... I hope I make it there before they do. But they didn't come in for like an hour after I got there. So it just didn't even matter.
Aww.
All those things.
Aw.
So what? So be it. You mentioned earlier that the New York Comic Con is next weekend.
It is.
You know what went on sale today?
New York Comic Con 2019 tickets?
Nope.
New York Comic Con 2020 tickets?
Nope. You're very close, though.
C2E2 tickets?
C2E2 tickets went on sale today.
2020.
From them, we haven't yet been approached about selling tickets or filling out a contract or any of that kind of stuff.
I gotta assume it's going to be earlier in the year this year.
Yeah, it has to be because the show is
The show's
earlier.
like a month earlier.
Yep. I haven't been paying attention to who's going to New York because obviously we're not.
Right.
But I wonder if they're still announcing guests. And isn't Ace like next week or the week after?
Maybe. I don't keep track of that one.
Yeah, the Ace Comic Con is coming up too. But Brie Larson will be in Chicago,
Cool.
and she'll come to Challengers
I don't think that's likely.
on a
but maybe.
Thursday. On a Thursday. Dal, I'm just about out of the things that I decided to talk about on a podcast this week.
Oh no!
So what that means is it's going into your lap now.
Oh golly! I'm trying to think of anything that was announced this week that I thought was interesting in the world of comics retail.
I mean, here's things that have been announced, but they're not necessarily retail centric. Little things like Jamie McKelvey and Matt Wilson will be doing a new book sometime in 2020.
Sure. Which, yeah, it's not really worth bringing up because what's the book? We don't know yet. They're going to be doing a new book. Yeah, I didn't think Jamie McKelvey was retiring from comics after
yeah,
Wicked.
I assume he'd be doing something
like
no matter what.
Shocker.
Things like the end of Black Crown.
Let me look on CBR.
That's an official thing. But I mean, like these aren't things that we would talk about as affecting our business.
No.
A Jamie McKelvey book will sell like a Jamie McKelvey book, you know?
Yeah, and
which is great.
The
And we
Black
could use a
Crown
new
thing
one.
doesn't matter because those books didn't sell for us pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
Maryland Manor, which was the one that kind of kicked off I heard the Black Crown's going away, was because they did the first issue fully returnable, and then they canceled 2, 3, and 4. There were talks of delays, which may have been the reason why it was canceled, but the sales were, I can't remember what it was for the first issue, like 5,000 something copies?
A number. You said it before. I think I want to say it was like 6 or something.
I thought it was like lower than that. And, I mean, we ordered like 5 or 6 copies, and I think we sold 1. I don't think we sold a single copy off the shelf. The one we sold was to someone who had pre-ordered it. So we were ordering basically club numbers on issue 2. And, you know, our numbers were going to drop over around 80%?
Yeah.
75 to 80%.
Yeah.
So if you extrapolate that out for what the print run was for the first issue, it makes total sense they would cancel 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, hey, earlier this podcast, I said I want to talk about how many books AWA is putting out.
Yes, how many, Patrick?
Artists, writers, and artisans. I don't know how many because
are they dynamite?
They keep adding books, and so far they have yet to announce a creator that I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe they got this person.
Straczynski?
In a move that shocks no
Frank
one,
Cho?
they announced a Garth Ennis book.
Okay.
Garth Ennis,
How did Axel Alonso get someone like Garth Ennis to work with him?
Right? Garth Ennis, who is writing for every company.
Sure.
And I admire that.
Yeah, good for him.
But, they've got a book by Ben Percy, and they've got books by Cullen Bunn, and they've got books by a lot of just current comic talent, which, I mean, fine, but how does that set you apart? How does that make you different? How are you getting the artisan part of this? You have artists, you have writers, then who are the artisans?
Maybe that's like the name for their bullpen.
It's just such a massive amount of books that there currently isn't room for them.
No.
Much less when they start coming out next year.
Yeah.
I don't even have a list because what's the point? I mean, we got 2 different samplers in, and I know that part of their deal is going to be having their retailer council decide which should be series and things.
Sure.
But I don't know how practical it is to be, hey, look at all these new books. There's a new company called Ablaze. Is it Ablaze?
Ablaze, yeah. They're bringing in mostly European stuff by creators that are making a name for themselves in North America. Sort of in the same way that Humanoids used to have stuff that was like, oh, this was a graphic novel a French publisher commissioned from like Terry Dodson and Jeff Johns or whatever.
Were they the company that had the Sumerian?
Yes. Yeah, they were the ones that thought they could get away with doing a Conan book because like the first Conan story is now in the public domain.
Yeah.
And I guess Marvel very quickly was like, nuh-uh. So now that's one that's kind of in limbo, but they are doing the Vampire State Building Charlie Adler book.
So is this... It was my understanding that Vampire State Building was a new book, not a reprint from a different country.
I'm pretty sure it's a reprint from a different country.
Because they made it sound like this is Charlie Adler's first post-Walking Dead work.
Technically, it's his first published post-Walking Dead work in North America, but yeah, the story itself, I don't think so.
Okay. So basically it's Dread or Raid Redemption, but in the Empire State Building?
Yeah.
It sounds cool, and honestly, we're carrying it. Comes out next week. But they're a company that had, like, a book like that, which you got Charlie Adler, you have a good high concept you can pitch easy to launch your company, great. But they have so many more books already that we're not even touching.
Yeah, we definitely put them out there for subscribers to tell us if they wanted to pre-order them, and basically nobody did.
Yeah. Is it ever discouraging to you for the amount of work you put into the monthly subscriber email with descriptions and photos and linking them all in and just going through previews and deciding what's going to be in the email, and then to have 80% of the books never ordered?
It has affected somewhat the way that I structure that and the amount of things I put in there. There were months where it's like literally every number one, I at least want to see if we can get an order for it. And every new graphic novel, I want to see if we can get an order for it. But then after a few months of that where it's like, no one's even looking in these sections. Like, we listed manga for a while, and nobody got that far, and nobody looked at the manga stuff. So it's like, forget it. Why am I putting that in there? Most of the other publisher stuff, I'm a lot more choosy on what I put in there because people don't care about any of that stuff. They don't know who those creators are. Unless it's got a killer concept and an amazing cover and a good title and at least one creator that people are familiar with, no one's taking a chance on a pre-order. They'll flip through it when in the store for sure, and they'll accept it as like a suggestion or a hand sell, but they're not going to sign up for it in advance unless they already think it's going to be good because they have experience with some element of the book. There's too much stuff in the back of the catalog that is just, no one reads Red 5 or Scout or whatever, so all of these books are by people that no one's heard of, from a company that no one has familiarity with, and they don't care.
What I find slightly annoying is when a self-published book makes it to a major publisher and they get reprinted. For example, Touching Evil.
Sure.
Touching Evil was self-published by Dan Doherty here in Chicago and kickstarted. And now it's going to be through Source Point Press, so they're starting from the beginning.
Right.
Now we have somebody who signed up for it in club when it's like, here's the graphic novel on the shelves.
That we've had for a while.
Just buy this.
For like over a year.
Buy this.
Yeah, it's sort of disappointing, but I mean, that's the market is the market, and there's certain titles and creators and companies that are going to bubble to the top, and people are going to give a lot more of a look to than stuff that is unproven to them. I can't blame people for that. I've said a million times, if I were an average comics fan, I don't know that I'd pre-order basically anything. Like, why would I sign up for something in advance when I don't know if it's going to be any good? Let me check it out in the store, let me buy the first issue, then I sign up for it.
Okay, but did you pre-order the new Tilly Walton book? Did you pre-order Chris Ware's book?
So, two things.
Okay.
First, some of that stuff I don't buy. I've said before to you that I'm pre-ordering books now because I can't get to them right away. And if I leave them in the store, I will never bring them home to read. So there's books I'm getting recently where it's like, maybe I'll love this and want to keep it and I'll buy it. But there's other ones where it's just like, I don't want to be taking a store copy.
Sure.
So better for me to
not,
sign up for in advance, have a copy here, and then if a copy comes back to the store later, that's fine. But we are still stocking the level we need to be stocking. Tilly Walden's different, where that's a creator that has earned my trust. Like, I'm going to get every Tilly Walden thing because she's one of my favorite comic creators, full stop. If it was a comic series by, a killer creative team that I loved, then yeah, sure, I would pre-order that. But most stuff, even by creators that I like, I don't know that I'm going to like that series. There's very few comics creators that are doing sequential monthly comic books where I'm like, everything they do is great. Like saying Tilly Walden, I mean, that's like Mount Rushmore for me. Like, that's Tilly Walden is on a different level.
It's just for Tilly Walden.
Yeah, like that's a different thing than just like, but you didn't pre-order these other things. Like, well, no, like one of my top three creators, yeah, they get a pass and they get me to pre-order and put my money down. But the rest of it, no, even the Rusty Brown book, I'm going to start reading it, and if I don't like it, if it doesn't click for me, it's going back. And I wouldn't pre-order it other than the fact of I don't want to just take the one or two copies that we may have at one point in the future when I want to read it.
Well, my point with those books is that they're not from one of the first major publishers, so people have to find them further in the email.
Sure.
When
Rusty Brown, a major book by Chris Ware that we had in the emails, or in the posting that we put on the website. It was in the weekly emails that we send out to subscribers. It was on the front of the register for an entire month, telling people that Chris Ware had a new book. 75% of the people who pre-ordered it from us were people who work for Challengers.
Yeah.
Like, 2 other people said yes. Chris Ware's new book, we could not get people to pre-order. Graphic novels in general, we cannot get people to pre-order outside of a few real weird specific circumstances, which I would have thought Chris Ware's new book would have been one of those circumstances, but no.
Well, you think...
They're all buying it at Quimby's because he's signing there.
Right now, right this very second.
Yeah, as we speak.
Yeah, so maybe... But I mean, I honestly don't expect that your average Challengers customer knows that.
And that's so weird to me because and this goes back to stuff we were talking about when we were having the Caroline Cash signing, is I don't think of us as the store that can't do anything with arts comics. Like, Chris Ware to me transcends the, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse Image sort of thing into being like, this is a moment. Chris Ware releasing a new book is a moment.
Yeah, especially for a Chicago store.
I think on Wednesday, I don't think we sold a single copy off the shelf. The first day that book came in, nobody bought it off the shelf. Now, the one thing I'm kind of ignoring is the people who buy graphic novels casually at Challengers, who would 100% be the audience for Chris Ware. They're not the folks that get weekly pulls lists or buy superhero comics or even get genre stuff from Image. They're all of them, every single one of them getting it from Amazon. All of them. Even Guts, we were finding that out, where we would have kids that are getting graphic novels that are either by Raina or by people who are working in the same sort of field that Raina's working in. And we'd go, oh, Guts is coming out next week. And they'd almost, to a family, say, oh, yeah, no, we've got it on order.
Yep.
Through Amazon.
Yep.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, that's it's maybe a lot of variables, but it's still frustrating to me that something that I look at as like, this is the biggest book that comes out in comics this week, if not this month, if not this year, and day of release, nobody who shops at Challengers cares. 93 people came in and bought stuff. None of them bought Rusty Brown. Not a single one of them.
Yeah.
Insane to me. And that's, I don't know, is that our fault? Like, did we not cultivate the right audience to make that book do what it's supposed to do and is probably doing in dozens, if not hundreds, of comic shops nationwide? Or is it just with the proximity to Quimby's that we will never be that audience for those people? That they've selected themselves out of even shopping at Challengers. They just go to Quimby's to get Chris Ware's book. And the people who come to Challengers are people who are naturally not going to get Chris Ware books. Like, that's the division now. I don't want that. And it's frustrating to me that we can't access that audience at all, apparently. But,
well,
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think in the very near future we'll have the ability to experiment.
I hope so. I don't know if if the we can't do well with Chris Ware is A, proximity to Quimby's, B, the fact that Chris Ware's audience is largely buying it off Amazon. Like, outside of the signing, I don't know. Maybe Quimby's is like, why does no one care about this book? I don't think that's the case. I'd be stunned if it was, but maybe. Or just that we are not the store for that customer, and that one would frustrate me the most.
Yeah, we want to think we're the store for any customer.
Yeah, we've talked about this in recent episodes. I don't think of us as the superhero comic shop. That's never how I've wanted to identify the store. And despite like the Chris Russo stuff on the outside, like that's not. I don't think of that as the store's identity. But I guess maybe to 99% of people it is, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I like superhero stuff. I like genre-y stuff from companies like Image and Dark Horse. But the idea that Chris Ware's new book, like, people don't come to us for it, or the people who come to us don't want it, is weird to me. It's very weird.
Well, we're going to have to redo the front windows, but instead of... It'll still be Chris G, but instead of superheroes, it'll be Rusty Brown, it'll be Young Raina, it'll be Dogman.
Sure.
It'll be all of those characters running. And I'm only half joking. Like, if we did, like, for Sidekicks, just did that with all those characters running to the door from the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, just look at comics, right? The poster we have hanging up by Jacob Shabot in Sidekicks with all of those types of characters.
Sure.
Which is borrowed from that.
Sure.
And then we'll have one door all the way in the back that'll be like Wilson, or, you know, a typical Dan Clowes one, or, you know, reach them from that market.
Sure.
And while we don't think of Challengers as just a superhero store, and we do think of it as a store for everyone, if you like what we do, and if you think we're the best that Chicago has to offer, maybe vote for us in the Chicago Reader Best of 2019 survey that's out right now. If you go to chicagoreader.com/vote, that'll take you to the page that'll take you to the survey. And we are in the Buy Local section, about a third of the way down.
BUY Local?
Yes.
Okay.
There is a Best Comics Shop category with 5 nominated stores, which most other categories only have up to 4. But we are one of them. We made it from the preliminary ballot, where people had to write in who they want, and then the reader calculated the top vote getters, and this is the runoff is what they're calling it. And it is for the next couple of weeks, but if you want to go to chicagoreader.com/vote, and in the Buy Local section, we're there. If you go into the, the music section, I forget what it's called, it's like 2 sections away, under Best Music Podcast, Car Con Carne is available is eligible to be voted for. The podcast by James Van Osdol, the man who does the intro and outro to this very podcast.
Neat.
In the first section, the arts and entertainment, or I'm not positive whatever thing is called, what section is called. Mm-hmm. There's Best Chicago Comics Writer and Best Chicago Comics Artist. Eve Ewing is up for a bunch of different awards in Chicago.
Cool.
And there is an entire section, a whole section, one whole page with like dozens of questions, just about cannabis. That's new for this year. But anyway, why we're pushing for this is that the Reader rarely does Best Comics Shops anymore. It's been years since there's been one where it's been an actual vote category. And unfortunately for us, we're up against both Chicago Comics and Quimby's. And we all know Quimby's is going to win, because they usually do, even though Quimby's is not a comic shop. Quimby's is also up for Best Independent Bookstore, which is the category they definitely deserve to be in.
For sure.
I think Quimby's is a great shop. I think if you don't sell Spider-Man, I don't know if you're a comic shop.
Okay.
I'm sure that could be argued against.
Sure. They got a lot of comics people signing there, though.
Yeah.
A lot, all the time.
They
all
do.
the time.
They do.
Quimby's is definitely going to win. But if people want to vote for us, that would be sweet, too.
And this is the thing that we're not advocating, but they tally the votes based off of, I believe, IP address. So you can't just keep voting over and over and over.
Yeah,
you can't do all these different email addresses or whatever. But if you happen to be voting at work, and then you're at home and you're like, did I vote yet? That's a different IP. Unless you work from home. Just saying. It's a thing. We're not advocating ballot stuffing.
Nope.
We're just
I'm definitely
mentioning that you can vote that way. Did I just ruin the integrity of that pitch for the vote?
I wouldn't say ruined.
Okay.
Tarnished, perhaps.
Sure. What else do you have, Dal?
There was one other thing that I don't think we got around to talking about last week because of, I think, when the news dropped.
That was so dumb.
Yeah. The new Batman creative team was announced on Batman Day last week.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Okay.
Since I think we recorded directly before Batman Day. Was that right?
Yes.
Yes. Which we could have talked about on this episode of Contest of Challengers, a comics industry medical business podcast.
We could have, but it was Batman Day.
Yeah.
It was about the same as last year.
Yeah, it did well. We had a fun time. Thanks to the artists, thanks to the cosplayers, thanks to everyone who attended.
You're welcome. That's right. I filled in as a sketch artist for a while.
Professional inker Patrick W. Brower.
That's right. It was fun to sit next to Luke. We even did one together. Somebody asked for Two-Faced, and Luke did the non-scarred part. Actually, he penciled the whole thing and inked half, and then I inked the monster half.
Still a collaboration.
Agreed.
On Batman Day, DC Comic Books announced the new Batman creative team that'll be on the book starting in January 2020 once Tom King moves over to the January 2020 launching Batman Catwoman #1. Issue 86 of Batman coming out in January will feature the new creative team of James Tynion IV, Tony Daniel, and I don't know, let's say Sando Floria.
Danny Mickey?
Maybe, who knows?
I don't know. And inker.
Yeah, and probably a colorist and a letterer, and I don't know. Superman's in it. I don't know.
James has previously written Detective for a while, and it was a solid run that I enjoyed very much.
Yeah.
He was a strong component of using the entire Bat family in what he did, and he really pushed Batwoman's story forward.
And Tim Drake.
For many times we've talked about who could you put on Batman to really move the needle, and we've made the argument that if you took the Batman creative team and the Detective creative team and flipped them, the sales of those books would remain constant. It doesn't matter so much who's on Batman, it matters that they're on the Batman title.
Yeah, there's a primary Batman book and a secondary Batman book, and the creative team, there's a floor for each of those books that the creative team doesn't really matter to. Like, there's heights that those books can go to for sure. Like, Batman could sell substantially better depending on who the creative team is, but it can't really sell too much worse. If that makes any sense.
I had a lengthy conversation with someone in the store today about this very topic, and again, we've talked about who could you get in to really move the needle for Batman. Mm-hmm. And I think James Tynion is a solid writer for Batman. He really excels in his creator-owned work, a lot of the stuff for Boom, like Memetic.
Something is Killing Children.
Currently, Something is Killing Children. I don't think that sales are going to go up or down.
No.
I think that he is...
I know they're going to go down by one. One person so far is like, I'm following Tom King. I'm going to read his new book, Do Not Give Me Batman, after December 2019.
Well, I can also tell you that I signed someone up in Club who's starting with James Tynion's Batman.
Yeah, I love the Tom King stuff, but it's certainly not a secret that it's a little divisive. The stuff he's doing on Batman is not very typical Batman stuff in the way that he's exploring certain character traits. And James Tynion is a guy that can do very strange things outside of superhero books, but I think his superhero stuff tends to be a lot more grounded and a lot more meat and potatoes oriented.
Yeah.
Sort of similar to what Tomasi's doing on Detective, where it's easier for people to get into, and it's more kind of plot oriented, I think.
So to get back to my conversation with this
Yes.
gentleman, and using somebody like a J.J. Abrams as a stepping off point, the question has been and posed to us, who can you bring in to get more people excited for Batman? And I had said I thought it was going to be Warren Ellis. Obviously, I'm wrong. But this gentleman was thinking outside of comics.
Sure.
Like people who could come into comics who he thinks would be a good fit.
I could tell you exactly who would move the needle.
Okay.
And create the sort of hype for a book that I don't think would ever be matched again. And I think it would easily be a million seller.
Okay.
Kim Kardashian West.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. She puts on Instagram that she's doing a Batman comic. We would sell 300 copies.
Okay.
We would sell.
You're not wrong at all, but this gentleman was talking about people that actively create
Have you seen her Instagram?
Entertainment.
Have you seen her
so
apps?
so his two choices were Ryan Johnson.
Okay.
And
Speaking of divisive, Jesus Christ.
Right.
I love Ryan Johnson, but man.
Oh, wait to hear the next one.
He made some enemies and fandoms.
The next one, I think, would be a big, like, we get people who've never bought a comic coming in to buy this Batman comic.
Okay.
Ryan Murphy.
I don't know. Ryan Murphy's interesting. I don't know how much that audience translates to going to buy something. Like, watching something, yes. Going to buy something in a store, I don't know so much about that one. Ryan Johnson, that guy makes movies. You go to the movie theater, you buy a movie ticket, you watch a movie. I mean, you could have said it about Tarantino years ago, but then he did comics and people didn't care that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, God, I'm trying to think of anyone in entertainment. Like, musicians, sure, there's a million of them where, like, if they said, I'm doing, Old Town Road, but now it's a Spider-Man story, like, yeah, sure, we'd sell 1 million copies.
I don't know. I mean, look at Gerard Way and Doom Patrol.
But Gerard Way, like, I think he's too far on from his music career. Like,
Okay.
when he was My Chemical Romance, Gerard Way, Umbrella Academy sold phenomenally. But then it's years on from him doing music, and so now he's, like, comic book artist, and do you remember My Chemical Romance?
Didn't they, like, have an album out in the last 2 years?
Did they?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, no one's talking about it. Tegan and Sarah write Birds of Prey. There you go. They got a new album out.
It's all covers, isn't it?
As far as, like, movies and TVs and books and stuff go, I can't really think of anybody, really, that because, the J.K. Rowling, maybe? But even then, like, I don't know if that audience cares as much anymore. I guess they do.
Yeah.
Probably. Like, that was always the dream for a lot of licensees, was, like, the Harry Potter comic. But at this point, I don't know that it would matter that much. But yeah, I mean, if J.K. Rowling was like, I'm going to do Harry Potter in college, it's not going to be The Magicians, but it's going to be a comic book, like, all right. Maybe that would sell well. Yeah, God, I don't know. Like, even Ta-Nehisi Coates was somebody who, like, I was aware of him, but I was not aware of how big his fan base was until he was announced as doing Black Panther, and we were getting people saying, I don't know what comic he's doing, but I want the Ta-Nehisi Coates comic book that's coming out. And we went, oh, this is going to be a big deal.
And it was, for a very short period of time.
Yeah, and again, now he's at a point where it's like, Ta-Nehisi Coates is on a book, like, I don't think his audience cares anymore. Like, that's the risk of any of those things, is that people care for, like, 2 months. And it doesn't turn them into comics fans. It's just like a Dalliance. Like, they're just like, oh, I could play it being a comics fan for a month or two, but I'm not really a comics fan,
Yeah.
Like, it's kitschy for them. Like, oh, I bought the comic book that Rian Johnson wrote, but they're not into the whole thing. They don't read the whole graphic novel. Like, even this J.J. Abrams thing on Spider-Man, it's got a bunch of, like, asterisks and caveats, and I don't know what sales of issue 4 and 5 of that book are going to be.
Right.
Let alone what issues 2 and 3 are going to be. So yeah, I don't... Some of it's pessimism. Like, it's hard for me to look at just your average comic book and go, oh, if only they could get so-and-so, our sales would be through the roof. Like, I've seen too many times where we think that and then no one cares. Or the interest just isn't as great as it should be. Looking at just the sales charts, like, we were looking at the one from, I think a month ago. And for us, the best-selling comic we have on the stands right now is House of X. By a lot. But it was like the number 3 best-selling book for the month after Marvel Comics 1000, which sold for us maybe half of what House of X sold.
Yeah.
And then Absolute Carnage was number 1, and that thing sold like maybe a third of what we sold of House of X.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, we sold out. We probably could have sold more, but we couldn't have sold 3 times as many.
No.
And that's... So I don't understand that stuff. I don't understand how the market is like, oh, these are doing great, and the X-Men stuff is doing really well. Like, it's not even a contest. But this was a contest.
A contest of challengers. Such a good way to end it. Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comic books. Boop.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.